We want justice in this case. We don't want secret grand jury proceedings. We don't want secret medical examiner reports. We want all threats investigated. We want the truth behind that audio. I want to know. And I want everybody on that boat polygraphed. We want answers.
I didn't come down here to do anything other but to get the truth. Did you kill Nolan? Did you have anything to do with Nolan's death? Did you delete anything out of Nolan's phone?
If this were your child, wouldn't you want to know what happened?
Detail assistance, Vicky speaking. How can I help you?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can you all please come? We have a membership.
All right, of course. How far is the water coming up, sir? Can you give me a description? Ankles? Hello?
Hey.
Yes. How far is the water coming up, sir?
It's coming up. We're just sinking. I don't know. Like we're going down now.
What did we just hear? What was that? One more time, please.
Detail assistance, Vicky speaking. How can I help you?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can you all please come? We have a membership.
All right, of course. How far is the water coming up, sir? Can you give me a description? Ankles? Hello?
Hey.
Yes. How far is the water coming up, sir?
It's coming up. We're just sinking. I don't know. Like we're.
That call gives us the moment everything changed. But there's a problem with the timeline leading up to it, because according to Warren, the last time he saw Nolan was around 3 o'clock. So what happened between that moment and the boat leaving the island?
The last time I personally laid eyes on Nolan was at like 3 o'clock.
Last time he saw Nolan was 3 o'clock. That is critically important information. Listen to what he just said, because he said the last time he saw Nolan was 3 o'clock. Now, let me show you where he said that they were towing the boats out. Watch this. All right, right here, he's talking about when his buddy Bart pulls out his buddy Wyatt's boat. So Bart is on one boat, and he's pulling out Wyatt's boat. Wyatt's boat is the one that you've heard about was taking on water and sinking, and that's why they had to leave Horn Island. I want you to pay attention to this.
To where we're out of all this, all this chaos, because we left at 4:30 and there was still.
We left at 4:30. We left at 4:30. This guy just said that the last time he saw Nolan was 3 o'clock. Very specific time. Now, how did he know it was 3 o'clock? Brandon Tatum didn't ask him that. If this was an interrogation, that's a key question I would ask. How do you know it was 3 o'clock?
And at this point, we don't have an answer to that question. But what makes it more interesting is that this isn't the only part of Warren's account that raises questions about the timeline. So what exactly was happening during those missing hours?
Wait a minute. You guys, there's fucking cameras on the fucking pavilion. And they can't even say they don't work because there's a fucking solar panel.
And this wasn't just one camera. As she continued around Horn Island, she began pointing out more possible surveillance locations. But there's an important distinction here. Seeing a camera doesn't necessarily mean it was working or recording that day. So the question becomes, were investigators able to determine whether any of these cameras captured what happened that afternoon?
Literally cameras everywhere out here, y'all. Every fucking where.
Okay, so I have now made it to Old Fort Bayou Pier where they pulled in to a stop. This is an oyster house right here, and then next to it is the fireworks stand. Now, I don't see any cameras here, but let me get in my car and I'll show you where there is a camera because I'm too fat to walk. For reference. What's that? Oh, what's that? It's a camera, guys. With a light. What is this, guys? Where are you? Oh, yeah. Okay,
Okay, we are now over here. So that is how far the oyster house is. I want to show you guys something. We got fancy house over there. Y'all see any cameras? I see lights. I wonder if there's a camera over there. I'll have to go on the other side of that bridge and see what's going on. Now where the ramp is, there is a drawbridge up there because this is a short bridge, so I'm sure there's cameras up there. They have to have cameras. I'm sure it's a state law. I'll have to look it up. Now this is where they would have come in at. Look at these fancy houses over here. That man walking his dog. I bet you they have cameras. Maybe them? Or maybe them? Interesting, right? Alright, let's go look at some more. We're going to walk on this side of the dock so you guys can get a better understanding of what we're looking at over here. Okay, we are on the other side of the dock. And I want you guys to take a look at this. That's a catfish house. They are definite to have cameras in there. What are these houses? Can you tell me none of these houses saw anything when they're next up to Lover's Lane? Which one on PT where Lover's Lane is? That, my friends, is Lover's Lane. And you're going to tell me that ain't questioned. Not none of them houses. By the way, that's a restaurant. That's a restaurant. So they have even better view. But they haven't questioned any of these little fuckers who own these houses. Look at that. That's a historical home registered for the state of Mississippi. You know they have cameras. I'm just saying. Oh look, my friend's found the cameras. He got something.
But if these cameras were here that day, the question isn't simply whether they existed. The question is whether anyone actually checked what they captured. So were these cameras ever investigated? And if they were, what happened to the footage? And that question about what investigators actually looked at brings me to someone who looked at the case from a completely different angle, a former Army investigator who went back through Warren's interview. And what he noticed about Warren's timeline is something I think you need to hear for yourself.
Was an interrogator, human intelligence collector, source operator in the Army. It's important for me to give you those credentials up front because I want you to know from where I'm coming, where I break this interview down. I am an expert in what I'm about to do. I was trained by the Army to identify deception. I have multiple certifications in scientific content analysis, which is where we break down people's statements, the verbiage they use, the change in verbiage, the line count of how they speak. I was certified in the read interrogation technique, which is a technique in which we analyze how people speak about things and where and how to identify deception. I was a certified Army interrogator. I was also a source operator, human intelligence collector. I've been through strategic debriefing courses. I've done strategic debriefing. I've done interrogations, thousands of them. I'm an expert in listening to what people say.
So
listen.
And so you guys get ready to leave out of there, getting towed out.
Yeah.
And then where's Nolan in this situation?
Well, Nolan was, the last time I saw Nolan was 3 o'clock.
Last time he saw Nolan was 3 o'clock. That is critically important information. Listen to what he just said, because he said the last time he saw Nolan was 3 o'clock. Now, let me show you where he said that they were towing the boats out. Watch this. All right, right here, he's talking about when his buddy Bart pulls out his buddy Wyatt's boat. So Bart is on one boat, and he's pulling out Wyatt's boat. Wyatt's boat is the one that you've heard about was taken on water and sinking, and that's why they had to leave Horn Island. I want you to pay attention to this.
To where we're out of all this, all this chaos, because we left at 4:30 and there was still.
We left at 4:30. We left at 4:30. This guy just said that the last time he saw Nolan was 3 o'clock. Very specific time. Now, how did he know it was 3 o'clock? Brandon Tatum didn't ask him that. If this was an interrogation, that's a key question I would ask. How do you know it was 3 o'clock? He said he saw Nolan. Watch. Let me show you. Watch. Hang on. Watch.
And then where's Nolan in this situation?
Well, Nolan was, the last time I saw Nolan was 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
And Nolan was cradling a girl in his arms. Katie. Katie.
That's Katie McCormick that he's talking about. And she has not made a public statement to my knowledge. I looked to make sure I didn't miss anything. But she has said that the information that she was with Nolan and Nolan chose to stay behind with her is inaccurate. She denies that information. So it's important to note that. Outside of analyzing what he's saying, it's important to note that Katie McCormick said that's not true. But let's listen. This is at 3 o'clock. This happened at 3 o'clock.
And Katie, Nolan was sitting there, and the last time I saw him, I looked at Nolan, and Nolan was like shaking his head, laughing, and I was like, "Dude, you
see Brandon Tatum like just a boy hugging up on the girl. You know, it's just what boys do. He wants to create this mood that he's just laughing because it's just some teenagers trying to pick up a girl. That's the mood. Tatum, this whole thing's scripted by Tatum and the family.
Crazy." I was like,
in my opinion, that's the opinion I've drawn from this.
Just joking with him. And but anyway, Nolan, that was the last time I laid eyes on him. But when we were leaving,
when we were leaving, so it would be 4:30 because he's already said we were leaving at 4:30. So he says he saw Nolan at 3 o'clock cradling this girl in his arms, shaking his head or something. I couldn't see. They didn't show Warren on camera when he said he was shaking his head. And he said, "Oh, you crazy, bro." And then he says at 4:30 when they're leaving, this happened.
Obviously, no one is getting left at the island that came with us unless they demanded to, be there and asked, this is a very common thing at Horn Island. When you're out there, a lot of people ride out there with someone and in with somebody else all the time. I've done that 100 times.
But anyway, I'll talk about it.
It's a very common thing, but Nolan was sitting by the boat.
Nolan was sitting by the boat. How do you know, Warren, that Nolan was sitting by the boat? The last time you laid eyes on him was at 3 o'clock. It's now 4:30. This is your timeline. As I told you guys in the first part of this, building a timeline on the day of an event that's in question is the most important thing you can do when investigating / interrogating that event. Timeline is everything. At this part of the story, he's at 4:30. But he just said less than 2 minutes ago, that the last time he saw Nolan was 3 o'clock.
With that Katie girl. And
now he's telling you he was still with Katie. So Warren here is saying that Nolan was sitting by the boat with that Katie girl. Listen again without me interrupting.
Out there with someone and in with somebody else all the time. I've done that 100 times. It's a very common thing, but Nolan was sitting by the boat with that Katie girl. And
how do you know that? The last time you laid eyes, your exact words on him was 3 o'clock. You're now talking about 4:30. Now listen what happens next.
My buddy yelled for Nolan, get on the boat. We're leaving.
Now, in the interest of honest analysis here, if they were both on the boat and he heard his buddy yelling at Nolan, not him, by the way. Warren wasn't yelling at Nolan. Even in his own story, he wasn't looking for Nolan or yelling for Nolan. And in the beginning of part 1 of the interview, he says, Nolan was like a brother to me. He was my best friend. More than a friend, though. He was like a brother to me. But Warren's not the one looking for Nolan, not the one yelling for Nolan. He don't even go over and lay eyes on him again.
But then, if Nolan was really planning to stay behind, why does Katie believe he was going back with the group? And why does her account of that moment sound so different from Warren's?
What you're seeing now is a post made by Katie's sister. Katie had a convo, assumed Nolan was getting ready to get on the boat he came out in. Katie made it home on another boat. Katie assumed the friends telling him, get on, wouldn't have left without him. Okay, so he says, I'm going back with my friends. She thinks he got on the boat. The mystery girl Wells reportedly stayed behind to speak with has been identified. Now, at the get-go, we were told no one knew who she was. He had never met her before. He had just met her and was talking to her. But her sister provides a different account of what happened. Whenever I see a conflict in the evidence, I have a problem.
But Nancy's explanation of Katie's account raises another question. When you put that alongside Warren's own timeline, do the two accounts actually line up? because that's where the Army investigator went back into Warren's interview and started pulling apart.
Yeah, so y'all pretty much having a good time. Just like anybody would imagine, 18-year-olds, probably 20-year-olds, college students, out on the island, women, you probably had alcohol. So y'all having a good time.
Yeah, of course.
And so where's Nolan in this? You guys out there, the friend groups are out there, 3 boats.
Watch that swallow. Watch that uncomfortable shift in demeanor. He just mentioned you were probably underage drinking. And the guy, yeah, of course. And then he says, where was Nolan? He goes, watch this uncomfortable shift in demeanor when he asked that question.
Yeah, of course.
And so where's Nolan in this? You guys out there, the friend groups are out there.
Looks away off in the distance. I don't know who's standing off camera, but he looks in that direction, swallows. He's uncomfortable.
There are 3 boats full of people that came out there that seem to be the closest friend group.
Right.
Where's Nolan in this in comparison to where you and others are at?
Well, I had a couple conversations with Nolan that day, and
I had a couple conversations with. That's where you start. In my line of work, where people start to answer your question is very, very telling. The question was quite pointed and specific. Where was Nolan? Rather than saying where Nolan was, he starts off with, I had a couple conversations with Nolan. I think this serves 2 purposes. I think it's to, once again, to lead the viewer to believe he was such a close friend with Nolan. He's my best buddy. I think that's number 1. I also think number 2 is to try to validate him as a source of information. But let's hear what he says.
I talked to him and a couple of my other buddies.
Once again, every time he brings Nolan in, he has to bring in the other buddies. Have you noticed that every single time he does that, it's never just him and Nolan, it's him, Nolan, and the other buddies? It's an associative relationship.
In a group, I was not focused on anyone solely, like looking and pointing anyone out, because there's so many people out there. I mean, I was talking to my friends that I haven't seen in a while from high school. I was talking from people I knew from college. I was talking to, everybody my age, and even people older than us were, over there. It was just a regular thing. We're all used to this. We've been out to the islands before. My buddies don't just go out to the island on 4th of July, but they go out, every weekend.
This answer is already gone all the way away from Nolan and completely to his buddies. Very deceptive.
Fish the islands. I don't just, fish around Horn Island. I fish around Ship Island too. So I'm very familiar with the islands, and
had nothing to do with the question.
I feel like it was just a big, I talked to Nolan, and Nolan was drinking. Everybody
has to point out Nolan was
drinking. Most of everybody, and Nolan seemed completely fine every time I talked to him. We had just regular conversations, and Nolan was making me laugh. I had a couple conversations.
No specifics on making me laugh. Just trust me, he was generically making me laugh.
With Nolan and Javon, Nolan and my buddy James.
I had a couple conversations with Nolan and Javon, Nolan and James, never just with Nolan.
And I can tell you, I talked to Nolan a couple times, but it wasn't like I was strictly sitting there talking to Nolan the whole day. There was hundreds of people I knew out there. So,
yeah. And
I grew up having a best friend, like the one he's describing, the one's like a brother. And it didn't matter where my best friend and I went. We were kicking it together. Other people might kick it with us, but we were kicking it together. So I just think that he's misrepresenting their relationship. I strongly believe he's misrepresenting between the way he talks and way it always sounds associative, and the fact that he provides no specific examples about Nolan. They're all generic. Said that. First of all, we're not going to brush off what Nolan Wells' mother said. She said, she implied, as Officer Tatum said here, she doesn't really know these guys that well that are claiming to be his best friends. That's very important. I have kids. I know who their friends are. If you've got kids, you know who their friends are. So when I hear mom say, I don't really know these guys, that matters to me, because as a parent, if she don't really know you that way, then maybe the relationship is not as close as you claim it is. And when I listen to the rest of the words that Warren is about to say, Warren's word, the deceptive behavior of his words, makes me believe mom. Listen to this.
Well, Nolan, a lot of the times was at my house, and
quick deflection because we weren't over there. He was over at my house. We weren't over at his house.
At my buddy's house. We never went to Nolan's house and hung out. And my friend group's very, very tight knit.
My friend group. He mentions a group.
We hang out every day when
we hang out, the group.
We're back home from school. In high school, we hung out most weekdays and every day on the weekend. And
we hung out we hung out. He's not talking about him and Nolan. He's talking about his friend group. You have to listen to the words people say. He said, my friend group. He didn't say me and Nolan. He didn't say me and Nolan hung out every day and me and Nolan were tight knit and me and Nolan hung out on the weekends. He said, my friend group. Let's back it up. I want you to listen to it. I want you to hear the words he says. Very, very important. Back this up just a little bit.
Never went to Nolan's house and hung out. I mean, and my friend group's very, very tight knit.
My friend group is very tight knit. And from this point on, everything he describes is his friend group, not him and Nolan.
I mean, we hang out every day when we're back home from school. In high school, we hung out most weekdays and every day on the weekend. And I mean, we were never at Nolan's house, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But I met his father, and I mean, in 8th grade, that's when Nolan and I got really close. It was COVID year, and we were in class all year long together, me and a couple of my buddies. And
we were in class all year long together, me and a couple of my buddies. Every time he mentions Nolan, I want you to notice that every time this guy mentions Nolan, he ropes in the friend group. He has to rope in the friend group because his relationship with Nolan is not this best friend, like a brother relationship that he's presenting it to be, which is why mom doesn't really know him, because really Nolan was just in the friend group, the general group of friends. It was an associative relationship, which is why the only way he can honestly give an answer right now is to rope in the friend group.
Nolan and I just got super tight because we'd get a Waffle House once a week together, eat, and I mean, we were just super, super close.
That's the first personal example he's given this entire interview, is them meeting at Waffle House. That's what a personal example looks like when you're talking about a friend.
But his dad would swing by Waffle House, you know, and hang out around us, but never, I was never around Nolan's parents a lot, but I mean, that didn't change our relationship any. Nolan and I were still just as close, and he was just as close with my friends as, anyone else. So,
as anyone else, because it's an associative relationship.
And that leaves us with a pretty simple question. If Warren's own account contains a timeline that an experienced Army interrogator says needs to be questioned, then what happens when the people at the center of this case start preparing for the legal fight ahead? Because there's now another major development. They're reportedly bringing in a high-profile attorney, someone with ties to Donald Trump, to defend them in this case. And obviously hiring a lawyer doesn't mean someone is guilty, but if their position is that there's nothing to hide and their account is completely straightforward, why bring in a lawyer of that level now? What exactly are they preparing to fight?
Alert from the Don Lemon Show newsroom, and we have another big update in the Nolan Wells case. The young men who were with Nolan on that boat have now hired a high-profile defense attorney, signaling their intent to vigorously fight this case and the accusations being made against them. The attorney is Edward Andrew Palzig, who has represented Donald Trump in his legal case involving CBS and Paramount and New York Times and BBC legal cases. Now, their choice in legal representation is raising some eyebrows. And as I've said before, one thing is becoming clear. This case is no longer being fought only in the investigation. It's being fought in the court of public opinion. Every new lawyer, every interview, every public statement, it shapes how people see this case.
We wait for that toxicology report. We wait for the autopsy to be revealed. We wait for a witness list to be produced. At this hour, reports a grand jury is convening to amass evidence, much the way the Cajun Navy did.
The timeline, the photographs, and the witness accounts have all added important pieces to the puzzle. But as this investigation has shown, having more information doesn't always mean having more answers. Questions still remain about Nolan Wells's final hours, the people who were with him, and the sequence of events that unfolded on Horn Island that day. For now, those questions remain unanswered, and until investigators release additional findings, much of what happened will continue to be the subject of careful examination rather than certainty. What do you think? Did the timeline reveal new clues, or did it raise even more questions? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more in-depth case analyses, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future updates. Thanks for watching.